7:12 p.m. and I am reconvening to open session and calling to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Indian Prairie School District 204 on Monday, March 9th, 2026. Meetna, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Donahue?
Here.
Ms. Fostick?
Here.
Ms. Gens?
Here.
Ms. Deming?
Present.
Mr. Rising?
Here.
Mr. Karubas?
Here.
And Ms. Grover.
We have a quorum. Ms. Deming, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next regular board meeting will be held on Monday, March 23rd, and we have 6 board salutes tonight. We'll start with Ms. Gens.
District 204 students excel in the elementary robotics tournament. The board salutes District 204 elementary school students and staff who recently participated in the robotics tournament this past weekend. We also salute Director of Innovation and Instructional Leadership, Brian Giovannini, for serving as tournament organizer. Congratulations to all the winners. We extend our congratulations to all participating robotics teams and express our gratitude to the Indian Prairie Educational Foundation for their support of the district's robotics program. Congratulations to all the winners and to all participating robotics teams.
Mr. Karubas.
Mattia Valley's first girls wrestling state medalist. The board salutes Mattia Valley Jr. Rosie Picari for becoming the first Mustang girls wrestler to place in the Illinois High School Association State Series, finishing 3rd in the 140-pound weight class. Well, they got to tell her weight right there. Congratulations, Rosie, on this monumental achievement.
Okay. Ms. Deming.
Scullin Middle School teacher named as Golden Apple Award finalist. The board salutes Scullin Middle School orchestra teacher Matthew White for being named a 2026 Golden Apple Awards finalist for excellence in teaching. He is one of just 30 teachers in Illinois selected for demonstrating a significant positive impact on student growth and learning. The nonprofit organization highlighted White's dedication through his support of a student with a cochlear implant. When the young violinists struggled to hear their own tone, White stepped in with tailored support to ensure the student could fully engage with the music. Winners of the 2026 Golden Apple Award will be announced in the spring. Congratulations, Mr. White, on this well-deserved honor.
Ms. Fosdick.
Neuqua Valley State Speech Finals. The board salutes the Neuqua Valley High School speech team for an outstanding performance at the Illinois High School Association State Speech Finals, where they tied for 2nd place in the team sweepstakes, finishing just 3 points behind Hinsdale Central. Neuqua Valley turned out 3 first-place wins, with top honors going to Yashika Singh in informative speaking, Charlie Kroll in oratorical declamation, and Samira Brandon in poetry reading. Samira Brandon also secured 2nd place in original oratory, while Lucy Fosdick placed 4th in prose reading.
Yeah.
Congratulations on this amazing accomplishment.
Great. Mr. Rising.
2026, those who excel and Teacher of the Year. The board salutes 3 District 204 educators for their recognition in the 2026 Illinois State Board of Education, Those Who Excel and Teacher of the Year Awards program. We honor Jessica Walsh of Granger Middle School for receiving the Award of Excellence, as well as Sarah Brucker and Granger Middle School as well, and Amy Mellon of Georgetown Elementary for receiving the Award of Meritorious Service. This program acknowledges incredible teachers, administrators, and support staff who make a lasting positive impact on their school community. Congratulations to Jessica, Sarah, and Amy.
Ms. Grover.
National Merit Scholarship semifinalists. The National Merit Scholarship Corporation announced 53 District 204 students have been identified as semifinalists in the 71st Annual National Merit Scholarship Program. Metea Valley had 17 students, Neuqua Valley had 26, and Waubonsie had 10 students identified as semifinalists. These academically talented high school seniors have an opportunity to continue in the competition for more than 16,000 national merit scholarships, worth more than $33 million that will be offered next spring. Merit scholars are selected based on their skills, accomplishments, and potential for success in rigorous college studies. Congratulations to the District 204 semifinalists, and good luck as the scholarship competition moves forward.
Let's have an applause for all of these wonderful accomplishments in our district. Very impressive. So, all right. Next up is our student representative report by Kylie Tran from Neuqua Valley.
Good evening. My name is Kylie Tran, and I am proud to serve as the student representative for Neuqua Valley High School this school year. There has been a lot to celebrate since our last meeting. Our school came together for a march down Main for our speech team, who placed second in state in addition to 3 individual state champions. We also recently held Mr. NVHS in an annual showcase featuring members of our senior class. I had the opportunity to attend, and it was a night filled with energy, laughter, and talent. Each contestant demonstrated impressive confidence, strutting in their tailored outfits, and special talents that included dancing, singing, and even cooking. As we transition into March, winter activities are wrapping up while spring activities begin. Our boys basketball team had a strong season, finishing as regional champs with the support of Gold Rush, our student spirit group, which has brought the energy to every single game. This past week, our Best Buddies program hosted Respect Week to raise funds for Neuqua's Special Olympics team. I proudly participated in the daily Spirit Week themes, and I'm happy to share that our school raised over $13,000. As we approach the end of the third quarter, our Flex Box last Wednesday gave students an opportunity to meet with teachers for additional support or make up any missing work. Our school's business clubs, BPA and DECA, recently competed at the state competition, with many students advancing to nationals. We also held our annual monologue show, and although I didn't participate, I was impressed by how well all the performers were able to express themselves through words in such a creative way. Seniors are heading into their final moments of high school with a lot to look forward to. Later this month, our school will be hosting the Indian Prairie Scholars Ceremony, an event that recognizes academic achievement and marks an exciting milestone for seniors. We also look forward to our Tangled theme prom and Senior Spectacular to look forward to in April. Finally, as we move towards the end of the school year, construction is scheduled to begin at Neuqua during spring break. Because of this, many seniors, including myself, have already started planning our cap and gown photos before big changes are made to our school. Thank you for your time this evening, and go Wildcats.
Thank you. Okay, tonight our school spotlight is Peterson Elementary School, and we will have Allison Landstrom, Marianne Kiefer, Shannon Roan, and Etienne Tansen here to present.
Is it on?
I have to pull it closer to you.
Okay. Okay. I don't usually sit down to present, so this is going to take quite an act from me. Dr. Talley, the board, it's good to see all of you. Thank you for having us. I am Allie Landstrom. I'm the incredibly proud principal of Peterson, and I am so excited to be here tonight for the Peterson School Spotlight. It was really difficult to choose what to spotlight. However, the more I thought about it,
what's important to us at Peterson is a sense of belonging, a sense of kindness, and a sense of support. And there is nothing more that embodifies that than our AIM program. I'm really privileged to bring with me some incredible educators. One is Shannon Roan. She is our speech and language pathologist. I've got Marianne Kiefer as well, speech and language pathologist. And probably the most important person here is Etienne Townsend. Say hi. We've designed this presentation for you so that you get a little glimpse into the great things that we do. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Roan.
Actually, that would be great if I could just jump in.
That'd be great. See, flexibility is also something at Peterson.
I'm so good at it. But on behalf of all of us here, Ellie, we just wanted to say thank you from the AIM team for your support, your encouragement, and your leadership has inspired the entire Peterson community to embrace and fully see every student every day. So thank you. Take it away. Yep, and Etienne.
Welcome to Peterson Perks.
Okay, so Peterson Perks is all about empowering students, as is our AIM program. So empowering students to
Welcome to
achieve
Peterson
independent
Perks.
milestones. So as a team, we thought, why have us sit up here and read every single line word for you when we can have our students present for you? So we pre-recorded some of our students speaking. You can see their cute little faces on there. Yeah, like my face. And Etienne's going to help us go through these slideshows, and you're going to hear from our students as they highlight what Peterson Perks is all about and what it embodies. So you can read along with us. I know it's behind you. I don't think it's behind us. So it is behind you, but you will hear, I'm not sure if it's in front of you too. Oh, awesome. Love that. So you're going to hear what they have to say about Peterson Perks. Maybe.
Peterson Perks is run by students and aides. Real life learning at school. I work on communication. We work on social skills. Work on church. I work on job skills. I'm working on white skills. We are Peterson Painters. We are safe and careful and kind. Everybody's help building confidence and leadership. Everybody's are my friends. We support and we help people.
So this is a video of us in action.
My name is Nova. This is I'm sorry.
Hey, there you go.
Thank you. Should we ask her? Do you want beef or beans?
I would like beef, please.
What's your favorite part? I like to be nice to people. Helping teachers. And then I give it.
Are you ready? Wow.
We work so many skills.
Who's there? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Yeah, who's that?
Dwayne.
Dwayne who?
Dwayne who?
Dwayne the bathtub. I'm drowning.
One more.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Who?
Who?
Is there an owl in there?
Did you?
Goodbye, see you later.
Did you?
Goodbye, see you later.
Etienne, thank you so much. Boy, that was just a presentation full of smiles, honestly. So thank you. I love all of the efforts and collaboration and helpfulness that everybody was, and the kindness to each other. So thank you. Every page was just full of smiley faces. So thank you, Etienne, for coming tonight. Thank you.
We'll invite you to the next one.
Okay, we have no public comment tonight. And we'll move now to our consent agenda and superintendent report. We'll start with our superintendent report. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. Members of the Board of Education, Indian Prairie community, there is still time for you to get tickets to the IPF breakfast that will be held on Thursday, March 26th from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. at White Eagle Golf Course. IPF, as we know, is the Indian Prairie Education Foundation. We are excited about this opportunity to inform our community about the wonderful things that IPF does for our school system. You can find information about the event on the IPF website. On Saturday, our 4th annual Mental Health Symposium was held at Metea. We had more than 800 people registered for the event. I am thankful to the collaboration with Naperville 203, East Aurora, and Oswego districts. Their engagement in the symposium helped us to spread the great information and opportunity to the larger community. The great work of the symposium was created by a number of people. Not one person can make that happen. I want to thank Indian Prairie School District staff who helped to create this year's program. Those people include Miss Emily Bolger, Miss America Villalobos, Miss Candy Michelli, Miss Janine Wang, Miss Dawn Faulkner, Miss Jeannie Dyna, Miss Lisa Berry, and Miss Mina Lowe. The month of March is Women's History Month. This is an opportunity to celebrate the accomplishments of women who have helped and continue to shape our country and the world. And if you'll notice, all the people I mentioned who helped create the mental health symposium were all women. Additionally, March is Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Signed into law by President Reagan in 1987, this month brings awareness about the daily obstacles those with disabilities face in achieving full inclusion. This month also celebrates the accomplishments of those who are differently abled and what they have made in our lives. Schools, in their own ways, have been celebrating these events. And finally, I want to remind parents to complete the 5 essential surveys. Schools need 20% of their parents to complete the survey in order for the schools to receive survey results. Results are used by schools as part of their school improvement process. We currently have 21 of our schools that have 20% of their parents completing the survey. A big shout out to Collishaw Elementary School, which is leading with 42% of its parents completing the survey. Surveys must be in by Friday the 13th to finish, so please make sure you get those in. Ms. Donahue, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, next I need a motion for the approval of consent agenda items D through H.
Make a motion that the Board of Education approve consent agenda items D through H as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mina, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Rising?
Yes.
Ms. Gintz?
Yes.
Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Bostic?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
And Ms. Grover.
The motion passes. Next, we move to our action items. I need a motion and a second to approve the school resource officers' intergovernmental agreements with the City of Naperville and the City of Aurora.
I move that the Board of Education approve the school resource officers' intergovernmental agreements with City of Naperville and City of Aurora as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mina, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Gentz?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Mr. Rising?
Yes.
Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
Ms. Grover? Ms. Donahue?
Aye.
And Ms. Bostic?
Yes.
Motion passes. I now need a motion and a second to approve the behavior intervention procedures as presented. Intervention.
I move that the board approve the behavior intervention procedures as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Mina, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bostic?
Yes.
Ms. Grover? Ms. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. Gentz?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Mr. Rising?
Yes.
And Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
The motion passes. Time for a presentation from Dr. Barbie Chisholm, Molly Owls, Jessica Bogie regarding the MS middle school, high school geometry class revisions.
Barbie Chisholm. I'm the director of middle school core curriculum, and I'm here to present to you some combined work of our middle and high school teams on our geometry courses.
Sure. I'm Molly Owls. I'm the math department chair at Waubonsie Valley High School.
I'm Jessica Bogie. I'm the district math coordinator.
And I want to especially thank Molly and Jessica for agreeing to present with me. This was definitely work that we did collaboratively with our middle and high school, our high school and middle school teams. And, you know, it helped us continue this work and have it ready for you today. So thank you for being here. So today we are presenting our curriculum revision and resource adoption for 3 of our geometry courses. Our high school courses are Geometry and Geometry Essentials, which are only offered at our high school, and then our Honors Geometry courses, which is offered at both middle and high school. It's alignment with our board policies on curriculum development and resource adoption, and our primary alignment with our strategic plan, Priority 1, Objective 2, ensuring we have high quality curriculum and instruction to meet all students' needs. So just a reminder of our general process for course updates. We always work together as the district curriculum and instruction team with building leadership, including teacher leaders, our department chairs, our curriculum teams, to determine which courses to prioritize each year. And our priorities, alignment to state learning standards, the mandates, ensuring alignment with evidence-based practices, alignment across schools and between levels, which of course is very important, the work that we're presenting today, our student achievement outcomes, and always aligning to the Board of Education goals, the strategic plan, our equity plan, and our Portrait of a Graduate framework. So our review process in general, we do a needs assessment to determine what the team should be focusing on. Then we move into the design and development phase, into pilot and implementation, and then that review process of our work, which sometimes this can be iterative, and we come back around and continue refining the work of the team. Geometry in Indian Prairie lives in a lot of different places, and that's part of the reason why that alignment becomes so important with our work. And so we did start this work as one cohesive geometry team, knowing that there was work that we were going to be doing collectively across all 3 courses, and also knowing that we were going to have to define things separately to meet the needs, unique needs of each course. So as I mentioned, our honors geometry is offered in our middle schools as part of our 8th grade Project Arrow math program. But honors geometry can also be taken, of course, at high school, during students' freshman or sophomore years. And our geometry and our geometry essentials courses could be taken throughout the first 3 years in high school.
So in our needs assessment stage of the development, these were what we determined as the teams were together about what we needed. We need to align the content for the semester breakpoints. We do have students that will move levels at semesters up or down, depending on who they are and what their needs are. So we needed a smoother transition for those students at those times. Also, sometimes that happens at the beginning of the year, especially with students who have not been a part of District 204 and come in. As we evaluate where they are coming in, we might need to move them pretty quickly. So we wanted to align the beginning of the year and the semester points so that those transitions are really smooth for students. And then in addition, we needed to identify some resources, new resources, update resources for the needs of our students. So this is the scope and sequence that the teams have currently determined. They are still in the development process that Barbie outlined, so we're still working through this year to make sure this is what we are ready to implement next year. So you can, there's a lot of words on these screens. On the screen, you can kind of see where they are as far as things that align. You'll see some similar words like triangle congruence kind of flows throughout the top row. Area and surface area and volume kind of flow through the bottom row. So the teams just had a lot of discussions on if this word is in semester 1 and this word is in semester 2, is that going to be okay for kids who may or may not need to move levels. So this is where they've landed right now. A lot of discussion has come around this. They could maybe adjust a little bit, but this is where we're landed right now.
Geometry concepts have not really changed, but a lot of the work was just realigning and determining the order to make sure that we're meeting the goals. And so as you can see, the content does vary, and the depth of each course would vary depending on if you're in honors geometry, geometry, or geometry essentials. But the goal was to have the essential content in similar places across.
And so we are kind of in different stages as far as the teams for resource identification. The geometry and geometry essentials courses previewed some materials. Barbie brought in some presenters for us, and we have landed on a new resource that we actually are pretty excited about. So that's good. And now we're working to align the curriculum with the resource. That's the process that we're in right now. Honors geometry is working on updating an existing resource that we have, so a book that we currently use, but using some updated resources, updating what they currently have for it, making that accessible to the students and the teachers, and then they will move forward with aligning the content and the math practice standards with that. So using different resources in that green and blue part of the screen, but now we're all in the process of aligning them with the curriculum.
Yeah, and we entered into it knowing that we may end up with some similar, some courses may choose the same resource, but we might end up with different courses. And the geometry and geometry essentials team agreed on that one resource was a good fit for both of them. So the recommended resource for these two courses is Reveal Math Geometry by McGraw-Hill. So we are going to be presenting this. It does include a 6-year digital license, and it includes a digital resource, Alex. Alex is an adaptive digital resource, and one of the things that both the geometry and the geometry essentials teams really appreciated about it is it provided a lot of opportunity to focus on spiraling some of those algebra skills that our students are going to need as they continue through their math coursework, and making sure that those aren't lost, even though right now they're focusing in geometry. So it is adaptive, and it provides a lot of flexibility for our teachers to really target and tailor to student needs. We would be purchasing the digital license, the digital resource Alex that is embedded, and then class sets of student textbooks and teachers' editions.
For honors geometry, which covers both the middle school and high school courses together, we, over an extensive discussions, did not identify a new core resource that we wanted, and wanted that matched the level of rigor that we currently have. And that's where that discussion sat for a very long time. So we determined at this point that the best course is to realign our existing resource that we use and that they really enjoy using to current content standards and the math practices. The book that we use is out of print. The new edition that we do use was printed in 1991, which some of the people at the table and in this room have used it when they were students in Indian Prairie as well. However, the rationale is that the problem sets and the different levels of rigor that are within this book are not existent in any of the other resources that we've looked at. And this analytical geometry course better prepares the students for the next higher level math courses that they're going to see in our school district. And additionally, through our conversations, the department chair's conversations with other school districts, many other of the high achieving districts around us in this area are still using that book or have just recently decided to adopt this book as their honors geometry course. We still do have print editions that are still in use across the district for student and teacher use. So what this work is going to look like to bring this book into our present day era is that we are going to align it to the Common Core standards and align it also to the math practice standards. We have aligned and started the discussion about the instructional practices that are evidence-based. Teachers are already using, but we're going to put into a pacing guide and walk through that with teachers, so all teachers new or seasoned in our district that have been using this book and resource will see these new resources. We are also going to identify a supplemental digital practice resource, either Math Excel, which is one that we have used in the past, or another resource that's still up for discussion as in our next upcoming meetings. I have put together a robust professional development plan to work with all the honors geometry teachers throughout the year next year to walk them through what the expectations are for the instruction in this course and how it's going to look similar to what they're already doing and how it's going to look different to match these standard adjustments. Additionally, this is one of those courses where we have to have a common final because of the high school credit that will start next year between middle school and high school. So that common final will also be readjusted, recreated, and ready to go for the fall.
And I just want to celebrate, this slide is a big lift, and a lot of this I want to celebrate Jessica's work in putting together this plan. Our team of teacher leaders felt really strongly about continuing to use this resource and, sitting and listening to what they needed from it. And then Jessica was able to put together a plan that was able to help them continue to use the resource while still meeting the needs of having it a modern resource. How do we make this align and make sure that we're really living in 2026 and beyond, even though we're using a slightly older resource? So our next steps are just to request that these course curriculum changes be open for comment until the next Board of Education meeting. And then we plan to request approval of the curriculum changes at the March 23rd meeting for the high school courses of Geometry and Geometry Essentials and the middle and high school course Honors Geometry. The resources will be available for review, both the proposed resources and our current resource for Honors Geometry. And then we request approval of the proposed resources for Geometry and Geometry Essentials at the 23rd meeting. And then with the goal of continuing that ongoing professional development and collaboration and the all-important development of those common finals. So, questions for?
All right, thank you. Ms. Grover, do you have questions? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would like to know if our students have any questions about the proposed changes for geometry. Yeah, you can come up here.
I would just like to ask, I understand that there is a summer program that also teaches geometry. Are there going to be any changes to the summer program as well?
At this time, there are not any changes proposed for the summer program.
Okay. And then you did say that the honors geometry textbook is out of print. I believe that's referring to the original, not the new edition, or is that also referring to the new 1991 edition?
The new 1991 edition is indeed out of print. So we still have physical copies, and you can purchase more from wholesalers, but having the print copies is not going to be a primary focus for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you for your questions.
Do we have any questions from students over on this side? No. No, okay. Student, yeah. Yes, one student. Yeah. Yes, she looks so young. All right, okay. How about Ms. Gens? Do you have questions?
Yeah, I do. Not really. I guess I do have just one question, and I just have to express my excitement so much for the fact that middle schoolers will be getting credit, high school credit, for honors geometry now. And apologies to all the students I know that have already taken it. But currently, is the 8th grade honors geometry really the same as the high school honors geometry? So the only change will be the common finals.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the content is essentially the same. Part of the work of this team is realigning, making sure we're all teaching the same kind of pieces and leading up to that common final. But yes,
Okay.
the content has remained the same.
Right. Okay.
The larger shift is just the instructional changes and how we're going to approach the topics would be the difference.
Okay. No, I think that sounds great. Thank you so much for all the work you have all put into this.
Mr. Rising?
Fun fact, geometry was my worst subject. So it pains me to even ask these questions. No, I'm kidding. If you could start with slide 11 first. I just wanted to make a comment here. I think this is awesome. So I love that you gave enough thought to say what's out there just isn't meeting our rigor. But not only that, because you could have just kept doing what you're doing. But no, you're taking this as an opportunity to making sure that we're fully aligned to the standards, that we're looking at our current instructional practices across the school system and the different schools, and making sure that we're aligning to the pacing guide. I think that is incredible, and kudos to you, because that is not something necessarily that the board asked when looking at high quality instructional materials, but I appreciate you have the foresight to do that and take this opportunity to do that as we're looking at new materials. So now to slide 3. I hope through this, and there is a question in this, I hope through this as well with the new curriculum that we're looking at, you also take the time to look at the scoping and the sequence and the pacing as it aligns to the standards. And I say that, and maybe you could give me a high overview of understanding about this. Because, and again, I'm not an educator, but this is my perception, is that high quality instruction materials are only as good as the materials themselves. And it really comes down to giving the best professional development to our teachers on the instruction itself. Otherwise, again, this is my perception, otherwise they might just fall into their regular patterns of teachers might have of how they teach to the standards. So my question there is, do we go, when we do have something like this, much like you're doing with the honors actually, when we get these new materials, and again, you can keep this very high level, but I am assuming that there is a lot of professional development around the instructional practices, not only on that scope and sequence and pacing, but how to best utilize that new material, correct? And if you could just give me a brief overview of that.
Yes, so when we are adopting a new resource, helping teachers understand the new resource is really important, so they understand how best to leverage it and how to pull out the best components of it for instructional practice. So yes, that is a part of the process.
All aligned to the scoping and sequencing and the pacing.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Fosdick.
I just have one question. How many students do we see switching levels generally? Like, do we know like a percentage or a general?
It's not a large number.
Okay.
However, it is something that is mentioned in the course catalog, and so we wanted to make sure that the process makes sense for students.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's 0.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a handful of students, but if we're going to say you can do something, our system should support that.
Okay.
It fluctuates each
Yeah.
year, and each of the 3 high schools have different numbers as far as how often it happens. Yeah, it does fluctuate. You tend to see more kids actually going up than you do going down. So like you'll start in that geometry essentials or geometry and move up to the one that is technically above it.
Okay.
But yeah, it does fluctuate, but it is a number each year usually.
Okay. I was surprised by that. Just as a parent, I didn't know
It
that
is,
ever
like I
happened.
said, a lot of the students that have not gone through 204
Mhm.
and have joined us, that we really have to determine where they end up. Some students also are really trying to challenge themselves and be in the honors courses, and we find that moving them up kind of mid-year is a good support so that the next year they can start in that honors level. So you'll see that happen too.
Okay. Thank you.
She did a survey.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we have, more concretely, we're looking at anywhere between 3 to 5 is kind of an average cycle for that. So not very many, and I think it's because the teams do a really good job of initial placements of those students. But once the students are in the course, if it's seen that, wow, this student can do more, they will recommend that the student go up. Or likewise, if the student is struggling and after all the interventions have been exhausted, they'll let the student go to a lower level. But it would be unusual to see more than 4 or 5 students do that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Mr. Kurubis. Nothing, okay. Ms. Deming?
Thank you. Just on slide 11, just on the on our book, do we have digital? We have digital access for students. And has the publisher indicated anything? You're smiling, Ms. Alice.
So the publisher of this particular book has actually been bought by another company. We are working to determine if there's any permissions that we can get in terms of reproduction. However, as I said, we do have the print editions that we can use. And then that is also why we're looking at having an additional resource like Math, Excel, that's more of the digital side of it, to again, adding that more modern piece to it.
And my last question, I've just forgotten because it's been a little bit since I had one in honors geometry. So when they take honors geometry in 8th grade, in algebra, 7th, what happens with their? I know what we're doing now, but what happens as far as their? What happens as far as their transcript currently?
Their current transcript?
Yes.
Currently, what they take in middle school does not go on their transcript.
So it just shows they just start with trig all of a sudden?
Yes.
Okay, I just couldn't remember. Okay,
Yes.
All right.
Most colleges, when they look at that, know that.
They
that
understand.
already took those,
Yeah.
but with the new changes next year, it'll be more clear for those students and parents as they're looking.
Wait, so like prior to the change that was put in place where you get credit for middle school geometry, honors geometry, so a student would take that in 8th grade, and then what would they do when they were in 9th grade?
They take, normally if you're taking that honors geometry in 8th grade, you would take honors algebra 2 trig in 9th grade. Some will take the regular, but most will take the honors. So those students' transcripts currently start at honors algebra 2 trig. So
Okay.
when they're submitting those to colleges or future, that's the first thing you would see.
And so now it will show an honors geometry on the transcript,
Yeah, so they'll get a transcript that shows that they have taken things in 7th or 8th
but with a grade or no grade?
It's more about the credit than
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah,
We
that's what I
had a
thought.
student who, we had a student who went to Texas, and because he took geometry in middle school and it did not have high school credit, the student had to take the course all over again. So this is the change that we were able to effect allows for the student to receive high school credit for the course. So his or her transcript will show, I'm going to make this up, either 5 years of math or 6 years of math of high school credit, depending on when they start with the high school credit courses.
Yeah, and we are still finalizing all of the logistical components of that. But one of those pieces to have this in place is making sure that our geometry courses are aligned. And so that's a big part of the work that we're doing here today.
Yeah, I appreciate that change. I know that took a lot of work or whatever to make that happen, but I do see like great benefit to that. When I first read your slides, I thought 1991, is there a mistype here? Like, but yeah, I mean, I guess geometry doesn't evolve that much over time or whatever.
I mean, in a lot of the, you know, especially with honors geometry, because it does take a different approach than kind of what we need for geometry, our standard geometry and our geometry essentials courses. I mean, there has been a shift in the focus of the standards, but again, for honors geometry, we still really need that analytical, you know, those good old-fashioned proofs.
Yeah.
And
Euclid is Euclid. I'm
I
sorry,
know, I was
that's,
gonna-
nothing has changed.
I was going to Google that while I was sitting here. Like, when did he? That was like way. Yeah, okay, yeah, because proofs. Are proofs in all three or only in the regular geometry and honors geometry?
They will be in all three in some
Okay.
way, shape, or form. You'll just at the honors level get much deeper, much more rigorous, longer, for example, proofs than you will at the geometry essentials, and it kind of develops as you go on.
Okay. No, I appreciate, and I agree with Mr. Rising. It was actually refreshing to see that we were saying, oh no, this textbook is really what we want, and it has the rigor and the needs for our students. So our community knows we're not always just going out and buying a new textbook every time. And so I thank you for that, and thank you for taking a hard look at all of these resources and selecting the ones that are best for our community. So thank you.
I'm going to interject here briefly. Now, are there any additional questions from the students after the presentation? Having heard what's coming up?
No. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know, they're done with that. Yeah. All right, we will now have our presentation for Dr. Lewis Lee regarding academic return on investment.
Oh, this is going to be exciting.
Good night. Good night.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah.
I will not.
Board members leave,
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, members of the board. As we prepare to enter the final year of our current strategic plan this fall, we find ourselves at a critical juncture. We have launched ambitious initiatives and made significant investments in our students, particularly through our MTSS framework. However, as we look toward the horizon of our next multi-year plan, we must move from assuming impact to measuring in a more objective manner. Tonight, I am presenting for discussion a proposal that will appear on the March 23rd board meeting from the district management group to implement their prison program. This is just not another line item expense. This is a strategic tool that is designed to do three specific things that our current data systems cannot. First, establish a clear initiatives inventory. For the first time, We will see a unified map of every program, person, and dollar we are deploying. The second is to actually calculate academic ROI, which stands for return on investment. We are hopeful to move beyond standard budgeting to look at the fully loaded costs of our interventions against actual student outcomes. We need to know which programs are truly moving the needle for our specific student segments. And third, and finally, we want to be able to optimize our current MTSS work by analyzing our resource allocation across tiers 1, 2, and 3. We can ensure our most vulnerable students are getting the most effective support that is possible. In short, we believe the PRISM program is the bridge. It allows us to close the books on our current strategic cycle with total transparency while providing empirical evidence that we need to build our next strategic plan on a foundation of proven success. To move forward with this partnership so that we can begin this work in time for the fall, let's take a look at how this fits into our final year goals. So this proposal, you will see aligns directly with board policies, and you'll see them listed by sections, 4 through 7. So some of you may already know this. Board Member Karubis, you may have known, we have just under 200 board policies. And out of that 200, we believe the PRISM proposal aligns with 65% of them. So instead of creating another board presentation on listing all of those policies, we've gone by sections. Also, this aligns with our strategic plan priorities 1 and 4, which I'll go through because we only have 4 of those, okay? So before we get to that work, I'd like to provide an outline for the discussion points that will occur during our presentation. We'll move from a broad look at who DMG actually is into the Pacific PRISM idea and discussion, explaining how it acts as a navigation system for our MTSS framework and ensures a data-driven future for the district. And then finally, we'll end with a draft timeline and open it up to questions and additional discussion. So speaking of timeline, this July will begin the final year of our 5-year strategic plan. The board in August of 2022 approved this plan and was focused on 4 district priorities. Why these 4? Because they align directly with our Portrait of a Graduate work that has now become our developed learning framework. These 4 priorities really encapsulate who we are as a district. And when you go to our website and click About Us, you'll see it's our strategic plan that lights the way. We are what this plan calls us to be to inspire all of our students to reach their greatest potential. Our strategic plan, Inspire, Innovate, and Empower the Future, is built on these 4 pillars that are listed there. And the goal is that PRISM is the tool that will allow us to operationalize future pillars that we would create simultaneously. We'll like to focus on 2 of these priorities as they fit in the PRISM framework. We know embedded with each priority that, as you can see, are objectives and strategies. When we look at priority 4, objective 2, provide all students with high quality curriculum, we know that we know that for stewardship, priority 4, that it's going to ensure an equitable distribution of resources. And again, what you'll see highlighted is maintaining that transparency for taxpayers. That's really important. And then priority 1 really utilizes PRISM's academic ROI model, where we can look at our MTSS supports and SEL work in which we're looking at how interventions are truly impacting either performance or reducing disparities that can occur in our student segments. And then finally, we know this board has an overall commitment to evaluation, and we believe the PRISM model helps to evaluate results to ensure that these expectations are met. About 1 year ago, during the month of February, we presented Vision 2030 to this board, and this board adopted a resolution for that. And so some of the Vision 2030 work actually aligns with the PRISM framework as well. And some of those crossovers are emboldened throughout. And if I could just highlight a couple, really it's that initiatives inventory where we're mapping district programs to specific strategic priorities. Vision 2030 looks at that and gives us a bird's-eye view. We know that Vision 2030 really identifies factors that drive students to ultimately graduate from their districts. And this aligns directly with PRISM's, again, their academic ROI framework, which answers what works, for whom, and at what costs. And then finally, we know that there's capacity building for continuous improvement. We want to be able to build that internal capacity via the academic ROI model. After hearing all that, you can see how this applies to 65% of our board policies, just based on terms of how it's the PRISM framework will have deep reach, we believe, through all of these frameworks. So who is DMG? We have had a relationship with DMG for over a decade. DMG is a national leader who works with over 142 districts across 28 states, affecting 3.5 million students. They specialize in combining management techniques with deep educational expertise. In that membership that we've had with DMG over a year, we've actually have done a previous program with them where we brought them in to look at some of our special ed scheduling. And we've had their eye on their A-ROI program for quite some time. And it's recently developed into their current PRISM framework. It was first developed about 13 years ago, and it started at their actual institute. They furthered it in their actual institute that began in 2017. So you've heard me talk about PRISM a lot. What is it? It's an acronym, stands for Prioritizing Resources and Initiatives for Strategic Management. So when you look at the budget, this slide really highlights, and for us, an iceberg of a budget, just over $490 million, that there are things that you can readily see. We see salaries, we see digital licenses, we see textbooks, even those that are out of print, as we heard a little bit. So all of those things are part of the budget that's easily seen and shown. What is harder to uncover and ultimately can make up that bigger part of the budget is what you see there, that initiative landscape. This gap, we know, can be unmeasured. It can show sometimes disconnected programs, intervention blocks, and the unmeasured time staff spends on them. We believe the PRISM inventory can capture this entire landscape and provides a more clearer view of how our time and dollars are actually being used. So when you think of PRISM and you think of why we're making a recommendation, think of it as a car. And when you look at a car, there's three pieces. You've got a vehicle, you've got a navigation system, and then we've got a destination. And so PRISM right now is that navigation system. And so in the PRISM navigation system, there's two key questions. Are our resources truly aligned to our strategic priorities? In this case, it would be our new strategic plan we would be asking for to help build. And then two, are we funding what actually works? And so PRISM, as an analysis, as that navigation system, creates an initiative inventory where we are going to be asking our people to come up with all of the initiatives that I'll talk a little bit more about in our district, and taking a look at those broader initiatives and how are they relevant in terms of our student population, what is the actual all-in real costs of those initiatives, how are they impactful in terms of what we're actually looking for and what we're actually measuring. And so that initiative inventory, that A-ROI, and that resource allocation are three parts of that navigation process that I'll continue to talk about tonight. So the next part is our destination. We have to be going somewhere. And for this district, our district, we identified that destination as through our Portrait of a Graduate work. And our ultimate goal, we know, is for every student to excel academically and socially. And those critical attributes that are present in our Portrait of a Graduate is really important, not only to our district, our staff, our students, but ultimately, we know, our broader community. And so we've talked a little bit about This being the final year, we know, upcoming, of our 5-year strategic plan. So we know that currently we don't have a lot of data that on which specific student segments would benefit most from our current spending. It doesn't mean that we don't look at data. It doesn't mean that we aren't actionable with that data. But we want to get very specific with all of our initiatives and how they are actually impacting what it is that we're doing. We believe that PRISM can serve as the bridge to closing out our current strategic plan while setting the stage for what will be the writing and the creation of our new strategic plan with its priorities and its own objectives. So the vehicle. We've talked about navigation, we've talked about destination, how are we going to get there? And that is our MTSS work. So this slide shows everything that who we are as a district. It's not only shown there, you see several of them on our board wall. We know that these are important to us as a district. This really talks about if people were to say, who are you? These are the pieces that make up what we call our integrated multi-tiered system of support. And in all of these branding elements, whether it be portrait of a graduate, whether it be our CASTLE framework, our culturally responsive instruction, our newest portrait of an educator, and more to come, I'm sure, it's important that we have alignment. And in that alignment, we believe our multi-tier system of support can create that. Traditional multi-tier system frameworks might focus just on one domain, whether it be behavior. Integrated means that we're focusing on not only the social-emotional behavior of students, but also the academic. Because we know that quality instruction can have an influence on behavior in the classroom, while behavior can actually impact instruction. And so aligning those two really creates up a framework for us where we know that they're interconnected, and that framework can really look to build upon the alignment of practices that's already occurring across our district. This is not something that's necessarily brand new for us, but it's the identification and the focus in which we hope to build with our MTSS framework. So looking at that vehicle, we want to make sure that any silos that may exist when you go across instruction and intervention and leadership and all of those things, it's going to be very important that our multi-tier system of support starts to integrate those academic and behavioral supports across the domains that you see listed up there. When we're talking, again, our MTSS supports, I want to be clear, we're talking about our 3 tiers of students. And that focus on our tier 1, which really aligns with 85% of our entire student body. Well, I'm sorry, 100% of our student body have access to those tier 1 supports, but ultimately 80 to 85% will fall into that tier 1 model. And using PRISM to make sure that our universal core instruction is so well resourced that we can prevent an over-reliance on tier 2 or tier 3. When we talk with our educators and our leaders, sometimes we talk about tier 2ing or tier 3ing our way out of a problem. And that's not what we want to do. That's expensive. And it also means that your primary supports are not foundationally strong. And so we believe the PRISM model will help us focus on those tier 1 supports to make sure that they're delivering the results that are intended for every single one of our students. So I talked a little bit earlier about those silos. We want to actually move away from a system where finance tracks what we bought, where we're looking at invoices, and academics is tracking learning separately. The goal is we want a unified view that tells us exactly what students learned and how that occurs relative to every dollar spent. This is not easy. This is will be a lot of work, but it is possible because when you look at how we're able to break down these silos, ultimately it's about student outcomes. When PRISM catalogs and builds the inventory, we hope that that will help create more operational efficiency, we'll be able to do analysis, ongoing analysis, where we're applying the academic ROI model. So this is not just a one and done approach, but this is a total shift in how we are looking at every existing or new initiative and how it relates to our current strategic plan. So let's talk a little bit about the academic ROI. This is not geometry, so we should be okay here. That being said, this really takes a look at, you've heard me talk about those student segments. So we're identifying different student segments, specific student segments, and what their outcomes are. So the formula, we're going to divide those student learning segments by the fully loaded costs. Remember, when we're talking about fully loaded costs, we're not just looking at the invoice of the program. We're looking at staff time. We're looking at was there additional substitute time to help with training. We're looking at professional development. All of those things that give us that fully loaded cost to really find our true return on investment. This will allow us to identify what you can see on that grid, whether it be low impact, low cost in the lower right, or high impact, high cost in the upper right. And ultimately, for example, if we found something in the grid of high impact, low cost, well, that's something that we want to expand. We are committing small financial dollars to that, and yet we are getting a high impact out of it. If we were to look at something that's high impact, high cost in the upper right, it doesn't mean that we necessarily need to sunset that, but it may mean that we need to refine it or further prioritize it based upon whatever our strategic plan goals are. If we found a program that's in the low impact, low cost, I would call these are potential distractions. It doesn't mean that it's not working, but ultimately those potentially might be programs that we might look to sunset. And then the one in the lower right, the low impact, high cost, that would be something that could be a danger zone, where we do have a lot of spending happening, but there is no measurable impact. Again, this is a model that allows us to answer those questions up there. Did we do it? Changing from did we do it to did it work? And ultimately, it's arming us with data as a district to then make some strategic decisions about which area we want to go to. Just because something lands in one or all of those grids isn't an automatic decision maker for us. It's just another data point where we're using agreed upon, I would say, collective decision rules that we can then make really good, sound decisions about. So how does it look if we were to bring PRISM in terms of the load on our staff and what that looks like? Well, this diagram kind of really shows that from the overall process. First, there would be a kickoff where we would have what PRISM DMG would call a core team. I would talk about them generally as a steering team, and that's made up of a small number of people who are actually helping to oversee the decision making and reporting in about the entire process. The next piece is really the key one about that initiative data collection. This is going to be made up of not just cabinet members, but also our district directors, potential assistant directors, who know exactly what are our district-wide initiatives that are occurring throughout our district, and let's start to build that inventory. What does that inventory look like for a district of our size? It's easily going to be in the hundreds. We know that already because through our MTSS work, some of the district leader team, we started building some of that initiative inventory, and we found ourselves after a couple of hours just well under 30, 40, and 50 and just doing that size. So which begs the question, what's DMG's definition of an initiative? An initiative is an investment in the 3 Ps, people, programs, and processes, that is intended to meet a specific goal and that is outside of the day-to-day. So that is DMG's definition of what is an initiative. It's outside. Ultimately, that initiative has to answer 4 questions. Is that investment strategic? Does it have a goal? Are we investing time, people, and dollars in that initiative? And does it sit outside of what we would call a zero-based budgeting? So some of that zero-based budgeting are things like your buildings, your facilities, your positions, your core instruction. Those are things that would fall outside of what DMG would categorize as an initiative. So after we've built that inventory of initiative, it's really important that the people who are impacting and are responsible for making sure those initiatives are starting to have wheels on them are our principals, our building leaders. So we would survey them based on this core initiatives group that was built up. And that survey is going to look at 2 things. It's going to look at their perception of the initiatives, because we know that's real, and also things that they're seeing, are they working? And once that survey is done, that's when DMG is going to present their final report for us as a district about what they feel, what they see in their data analysis, and where those programs fall along that matrix. It's a report. It's a report that we are going to have, and that we as a district then get a chance to make some key decisions about in terms of programming, in terms of future strategic planning, and in terms of making sure our MTSS process is properly aligned. And I talked earlier about this is not something that is one and done. What's next? Well, the next part is really probably the most important part, to make sure that anything that we are looking at falls under an ROI umbrella. And for us, that would be what's called a Plan, Do, Study, Act process. We would take a look at all new and existing programs and really put them under this ROI model. By doing that, this is going to be embedded into our annual budget process. There will be an established review cycle. Well, any new investments will go through this purpose, cost, and strategic alignment, where we're updating this inventory regularly. It could be yearly, it could be 2 years, probably not outside of that, but it'll be important really for us to then make decisions about which programs are we scaling up and which ones are we sunsetting. How long is this going to take? DMG has a recommended timeline based upon this board's action and potential approval, where we would do a kickoff in April based on the framework for inventory gathering that I just shared with you, where we would hope to be shovel ready for a new strategic plan to start to be written, and also in time in sync with the fiscal year 27 budget process, so that when that budget is presented before this board in February of 2027, we have some additional data that can help inform what that ultimate budget looks like. So really what we're trying to do here, and probably could have just opened with this slide, and this is probably really what we're trying to do. We're trying to move from inventory to impact. That's it. We're just trying to take an assessment of what are we doing, analyzing it, and then making some strategic decisions about what we already have in place. What is the investment on this? The investment is $175,000 on a $490 million budget. And it's really taking a look at from strategy to stewardship, making sure that things that appear often on a budget line item can become operationalized in terms of making sure that every single one of our students, we are providing them with the program that we know truly has data that shows how they're being impacted. We would bring this back to the board after tonight at the March 23rd meeting for additional, with a formal proposal, with a request for approval, and any additional discussion that might take place at that time. With that, I'll open it up to any questions and or comments that I'm happy to answer.
Ms. Dumming?
Dr. Lee, can you share a little bit about the, little bit more about the first cohort model that has that's going on with this particular initiative, and what's been seen with it, and what where that second cohort model looks like, or where that stage is?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of our integrated multi-tier system of support, which we've been working on as a district for some time, we are currently partnering with a consultant from Midwest PBS, and in that model, we are establishing different cohorts of demonstration schools so that we can start to operationalize the work of the integrated model. Why different cohorts? We are a large district, and in order for us to do this with fidelity, it's important that we take the time to provide training with our schools and our staff and their leadership teams. So we've just finished up with cohort 1. In that cohort, we had several schools from both elementary and middle level, and we were able to provide training for these multi-tier system of support, where we were already analyzing initiatives that they are doing at all 3 tiers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And in that training, it's really important that the tiers are being, all the initiatives in those tiers that they're doing both in the classroom and as a school are being done with fidelity. And that with fidelity is really the key piece. And so we just kicked off recently cohort 2. And so now the cohort 1 schools, those leaders are also working with the cohort 2 schools as coaches and helping them implement this as well. We hope to be able to start cohort 3 later this fall, and so this process really will be felt across all of our schools over the between last year and the next year itself.
I had a chance to ask a little bit about student outcomes, and this investment certainly want to ensure we can understand how this benefits, how this will make a difference. And so slide 14, where you began to talk about student outcomes with the investment and then the impact on academics. Can you share, we did ask the question, is this something that's looked at the building level, if it's something that's looked at across the elementary, mid, high school level? Can you just walk a little bit through that, how we understand what those student outcomes, how they're viewed?
Yeah, in a district of our size, and really for any district, the challenge is always in knowing what you're actually doing, all the way down to the teacher and whatever that initiative by building or district is in the classroom. And our approach has been to start to take a step back. Dr. Talley has even talked about this. In order for us to go fast, we need to go slow. And so, and by going slow, we're identifying what are silos that we need to first break down, and how do we communicate effectively to all of our building leaders that these are things that are important. So PRISM is designed to come in and take a look at all of your initiatives, not just academic, but across all of our departments. So based on that definition that I shared earlier, we're also going to be looking at all of our support departments that operate out of the district office, whether that be our communications department, definitely our special ed department, definitely our curriculum instruction, but also our tech department. All of those things also currently have initiatives that help to support students. And so it's important for us to take a broad look at what are our district initiatives, because those are the things that we know are affecting everyone. Now, some initiatives, as you talked about, Board Member Deming, will maybe primarily focused on the elementary. So it'll be important that we have directors of elementary to identify those so that we can make sure whatever those are, that principals at that level are being surveyed on those initiatives. So DMG will sort those out by level, but also be inclusive of those that cover all levels. And then I think to the second part of your question, the ongoing ROI piece, that will allow us to take any potential building initiatives and see, well, does it fit into this greater framework of our strategic plan? Because some of our initiatives, some of the building things that we've done, some of the spending that occurs because we think it's a good program. And it very well may be a good program, but how do we know? And are we getting the actual results that are needed so that we can make sure impacts all of our students?
The conversation that I had earlier with you, when you shared that this was not just going to be across academics but across all, I thought that was really important for us to be sure that we shared. So appreciate the look at this, and I look forward to the opportunity to kind of get into some of the schools where the cohorts have happened to see, as you indicated, would be available. So thank you.
Ms. Grober.
Thank you, Lois. I'd asked this question earlier, but I wanted to ask it again so that anyone at home can hear. We have the Safer, Stronger 204 currently, and how can we ensure that the facilities renovations will support programs that the PRISM says are high impact?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. First of all, I'll start with that piece of the zero-based budgeting and what falls inside and what falls outside of that. PRISM is not going to be looking at our ongoing maintenance needs, our facilities, our existing facilities, because those are part of what they would classify as that zero-based budgeting, and that includes our core instruction. Right, we are not going to stop teaching certain subjects or anything. So those we are not looking at. What we are looking at, DMG would look at, and this is for where we're at with the Safer, Stronger 204 campaign, is programs that are out there that potentially, based upon where they might fall on that grid and decisions that we make as a district, of do they come back in-house? And if they come back in-house, where do they go? As part of the Safer, Stronger 204 campaign, we are looking at redesigning the Burkett Center, and that building is actually bringing in some in-house programs to a more centralized location. It's bringing back our STEPS program, which we know right now we're from a leasing cost, we're paying about $50,000 a month, and we'll be able to bring that in. What we don't know is the all-in cost on that, and DMG will help us look at that. We'll be able to take our program that's currently in our Wheatland building, our Gail McKenzie program, and bring that into the Burkett Center. With that center, there are other things that potentially we could bring in as well. And so knowing that the Burkett Center doesn't come online until the 2027-28 school year, this is a perfect opportunity that if there were some things that were identified, that we have some opportunities in which we can easily shift some of that planning strategically and still be in line with, I know the business offices with Mr. Shipley's goal to be under budget and on time. So I think, again, it does not keep us, and we want to still look at everything that we can. And I think I'll just stress again, taking a look at it is important. It's important to have the data, and it's important for us to be armed with things that we're able to do and things that we may not want to do, but at least we'll have the information about why we're choosing that.
I have one more question, because the DMG, the programs that they will look at, they will get from like the principals or inputs from others. How will we come up with other ideas? Like, will DMG perhaps think of synergies between, you talked about Gail McKenzie coming in and STEPS coming in, so if their programs are not there already but can be there, will DMG think of those programs?
Yes, I've talked with them on several occasions, and I've also talked with districts both in-state and out-of-state, and they've been doing this a while. They will help us identify areas in which we should be looking at. The initiatives inventory will be done primarily by our cabinet and district administration directors, assistant directors, where the principals will have the piece of the evaluation. And that is really designed because they are the boots on the ground. They are the ones who are operationalizing every single one of those initiatives. The principals also aren't going to be aware of every single initiative across levels, whereas our district administrators will be. And DMG will guide us to make sure that we are not leaving things off the table. And so highly confident with what they've shared with some of the districts I've spoken with, and the identification of it, that they do a systemic job at making sure that they know what we should be looking for.
Mr. Karubas.
I support the engagement of the consultant, and I trust administration's use of the data, but I do have some reservations. So let's look at page 15. And I can appreciate this isn't scientific or, mathematic to the 100th place. But a lot of this, I'm concerned about the quality of the data and some of the subjective nature of this. We are only getting information from our principals. So our data input has an inherent limitation. We're not asking our teachers, our parents, our students about this. Now, maybe in this instance, the principals can serve as a proxy, and we're not paying, $1 million to do a comprehensive survey of the whole community. So I can appreciate the cost effectiveness of doing that, but it's just a reservation. And then I just heard that we're excluding some programs. Some are mandated. We can't, cut a certain program, but we can look at how we are administering the program from an impact cost standpoint. So I can appreciate that, but that is impacting some of our data, I think. And we're excluding some costs. So we say fully loaded costs, but we're not talking about the cost of maintaining, the planetarium or the pool and stuff. So if we're not including buildings and maintenance, we are, intentionally limiting the scope of our data. So that's going to impact, the outcome coming out. Some of this is subjective. How do you determine the impact of a program's student outcomes? You have discipline, you have mental health, you have things that aren't going to, fit nicely on a rectangle and be able to put them on a yellow, green, red box. So some, concerns about how this is going to be implemented, but don't have reservations enough to not do the engagement. I'm hopeful. It's looking like there will be some return on our investment in doing this. But those are some of my reservations in looking at this slide. Going to page 18. I suggest when we look at that final report, we include a section on, was it worth it? You know, did we, in going through this process and the money that we spent, did it help us? Did we get good data? Were we able to look at the budget, look at the programs, and make some adjustments? So I think we need to do some post review of was it worth it? And then looking at page 19, we're talking about making data-informed decisions. In addition kind of to the limitations on the data that I was talking about, we need to know kind of how do we know it worked? You know, and so that gets into the, yeah, we went through this exercise and we engaged a consultant and spend money on it and, you know, spent staff time in trying to get there, but how do we know that we were successful? And I don't expect you to develop all this, you know, right now, and I think going through the process will help, and that's part of saying, was it worth it? So those are my comments.
Thank you.
Ms. Fosdick.
I want to thank you first for the thoroughness of your presentation, because while I thought I got most of it reading through it, it was far richer having you present it. So thank you for that.
Hopefully I can get some students to stay.
Yeah.
They should have stayed.
Yes, exactly. They were missing out.
We do have
That's right. We'll have to ask.
Right.
So that was my first comment. Thank you for that. And then my other question was really what Mr. Curtis just touched on, is when will we know if this works for us? You know, there's the inventory plan for beyond year 1 and year 2. When do we just choose when to evaluate? Is there a recommended time? And have we explored alternatives to PRISM?
Yeah, it's been interesting because as we've really started to look at this more seriously, and my team, if they were here, you know, I always ask the question if something new was coming, especially like you saw the curriculum presentation. I'm always thinking, okay, what's coming off? And so we've already, in a sense, I know it's working from a standpoint of I've already had some closer alignment with the budget office as we've talked through things. I think I know I've seen some on my team just in their analysis of when we're talking about programming and staffing, there is purposeful discussion around how do we know what's working. So I've seen the shift a little bit already. Excited to see the direction that this takes the district if it's approved by the board, because I think this can really set us up for future planning and goals that are more closely aligned. We're not going to return on investment, as Board Member Karubis. We're not dealing with parts. We're dealing with impressionable young minds who I think, you know, I was reading an article, even AI is having struggles with their tutoring pieces because you can't assign a set of rules for multiple outcomes that come from students. And that's a good thing. If we ever got to a point where we were, you know, very rigid in some of the things we were doing, then it gets away from our mission statement where we're inspiring all of our students to achieve their greatest potential. So, and some of that I think we're okay with some of that subjectivity because we know there's just multiple ways in which students can display and show achievement. So.
Okay. Just my last piece. How do we land on PRISM as opposed to any other?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Had our eye on their ROI model for several years. As we got closer, my team, and I appreciate the question because I want to make sure I thank them. They served a big role in effectively evaluating and taking a look at other academic ROI programs. So DMG Prism was not the only one we looked at. We looked at several others, some that were in state and some that had a national footprint. And ultimately, this was not my decision. This was the team's decision to land on Prism based upon some of the things that we've talked about. Academic ROI is not new. There are many players out there, but ultimately they chose Prism not only because of their functionality with the inventory, but the continued work after year 1 and year 2. That this is not a one and done investment, that this will keep going.
Thank you.
So our Student Advisory Board representative, do you have some comments or questions?
I'm not sure how much we know we invest about 16,000 students.
Okay, so my first question is, how much have we worked with, or if at all, DMG in the past?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We serve right now as a member partner with them, and what that means is on a yearly basis, we maintain a yearly membership with them. We have access to all of their research, conference work. Superintendent Dr. Talley has access to a yearly conference that we go to. And then, and we've been doing that for over a decade. And then the second piece in which we actually have a relationship with them is we have worked with them in the past, probably about 7-8 years ago, on some special ed programming where they came in and did an analysis at one of our levels, I believe the elementary level, to look at how effectively we're scheduling, looking for students, special needs students, and prioritizing them.
Thank you. So I understand, obviously, we don't have every single detail about what DMG would do, but I did want to ask a little bit about what types of data they would be looking for or they would be collecting from the different schools and the district, and also what methods they would use to collect this data.
Yeah, I would call it primarily a mixed methods. So they're going to do some qualitative analysis and some quantitative. Definitely the quantitative analysis is going to be important. We need to know by X percent how effective this program is. So that would be from that quantitative piece. The qualitative piece is really going to be part of that survey, right? There are going to be natural perceptions that leaders have about programs, and how is that matched up with actual pieces of those programs and what they're actually doing. And so DMG has a process in which they can create a scattergram of both of those pieces, while also from the quantitative piece actually calculating real dollars and assigning a dollar amount. In that final report, we hope to get an actual dollar amount of some, not only an idea of how much we're spending on some of these initiatives, but through their analysis, what are some potential cost savings? And I say potential because if they identify, let's say, $6 million in savings, that doesn't mean that we are automatically going to make $6 million in cuts. It just gives us further data to really make some informed decisions.
My next question is, how does this compare to other methods that we've used in the past to review our initiatives?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So I'll compare it to kind of what we've been doing as a district when we are looking to not only measure some of our programming, but also if we have to make potential cuts. So, and it's just not our district. It's how a lot of school districts operate in terms of where they might look at a department and say this department needs to cut spending by X percent. And so what happens is, because we are humans, when you hear that you need to cut your department by X percent, you try to take a look at it objectively, but ultimately emotions can become a part of it, and that can be challenging. It doesn't mean anything is necessarily wrong with what you're doing. It's just a factor of when you're not able to look at objectionable data. And so we have been able to make some decisions about that. It can get tricky because you're asking people to think about it, come back, let's have another meeting. All right, where are we at? Because it just takes some time. And so, and time is the factor there. This, we hope, where we've got a common set of how we're going to make decisions and moving from incremental sort of budgeting to really analyzing each investment that we're making based upon where's the direction that we're going. How does it fit into our strategic plan and our portrait of a graduate? There are many things out there that are great for students. It doesn't mean, though, that we have the capacity to hit all of those. And so it'll be important for us to really determine what are the ones we want to hit and do really well, and the other pieces maybe refine or find an alternative route.
And I believe you said that this DMG review would not be it wouldn't be really looking at the core curriculums, for example.
Yeah, core instruction.
Core instruction,
yep.
Yes, thank you. So do we have a sort of quantitative method of review for the core instruction as well?
Yeah, I like that question. Yes, I think, even without DMG, we regularly present data to the board on our assessment results, on how we're doing with different, whether it be through our benchmarking assessments. So that data does show us growth that we're having across the district, whether it be SAT, ACT scores, iReady scores. So all of those come from core instructional coursework. What DMG will help us do even more is, while it may not happen through this process, it doesn't mean that we can't take an initiative that really, let's say, just focuses on some of the core areas and take that through. Is it relevant to what we want to do? We can't. I think in order to fit the timeline and what we're trying to do, DMG wants to be strategic about where their focus is going to be. But it doesn't mean that we can't and we want to look at all areas.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all of my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the questions.
Ms. Gentz.
Yeah, thank you for those excellent questions. Honestly, I think a lot of those we didn't think of, and then we wondered why we didn't think of them. So thank you. And I do want to just echo Ms. Fosdick's sentiments that I want to thank you for this very thorough presentation and all the work that I know you and your team did, over the last, God only knows how many months, to get to this point. I just had one question to make sure I'm understanding all of this correctly. So on slide 18, as we're talking about the implementation timeline, when it's coming to the data collection, it is solely DMG doing the data collection, or are there discussions happening regularly with the cabinet, as you were referencing from Ms. Grover's questions?
Yes to both, and this is how. First of all, I want to emphasize this is a draft timeline.
Right.
There may be pieces of it that we move up, or that we maybe it's not shovel ready to November. So it's a draft.
Mm-hmm.
DMG will be the ultimate, will be collecting and do the final analysis of the data.
Mm-hmm.
However, that the core team that I talked about in the beginning, that I said is more kind of that steering team that's going to be made up of just a small number of people. we're going to have those ongoing conversations with the DMG director throughout the entire plan.
Okay.
So those regular check-ins and how frequent they are will be determined, but this won't be something where we're just sitting back and hoping.
Right.
We're going to have they want our guidance, and we're not going to be hands off in providing it.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you. That was my big question. So thanks,
Mr. Rising.
So, back to something Ms. Deming asked. Refresh my memory. I heard we're doing some MTSS training right now, and if we are, what are we doing that MTSS training on? Are we doing it on academics? Are we doing it on behavior? Are we doing it on SEL? What are we doing MTSS training on right now?
Before Dr. Lee answers that question, Indian Prairie actually did some MTSS work before the pandemic. And that information was, I assume, was brought to you, that was before my time. The pandemic hit, and then MTSS sort of fell to the wayside, if you will, to a point. I want to be careful about that. And so we then reinitiated integrated MTSS, and as Dr. Lee mentioned during his presentation, and can now answer the question for you, but I wanted you to be aware, we did start MTSS before the pandemic.
So thank you, Dr. Talley. 3 things that I'll first talk about to answer your question, Board Member Rising, is there are 3 main reasons about why DMG now. The first one is to serve as that bridge for our strategic plan. The second one is to better coordinate our financial dollars as an investment. And then that third piece is to integrate fully with our MTSS work. And so our MTSS is can be a totally separate presentation that we will be bringing back to the board to talk about some updates there. That plan itself really want to be able to demonstrate how our PRISM work as we're training our building level teams on that is really going to help further that work that's already being done. So as Dr. Talley said, the multi-tier system of support is nothing new. It really, the seeding for it really goes back to 2004 when response to intervention first came out. So, and students were being over-identified for special ed, and that's kind of why there was a shift away from it. And so now you're hearing across the country the multi-tier systems of support. So our staff have been doing it for quite some time. It's important for us with this integrated model, to your point, to take both academic and the behavioral and integrate them together, because we don't, some traditional MTS models kind of can look at one and the other and keep them separate. But again, it goes back to what I was sharing earlier, a student sitting in a classroom and sometimes their behavior, they may struggle with good decision making because the curriculum is not engaging for them. So we know that through that MTS work that it's important that we make sure that all of our educators are delivering quality instruction. And then the other piece of that is making sure that setting what are those things that you can do in, let's say, the physical environment of a classroom where behavior, you can keep it from impacting instruction because of the setup of your classroom. So if you were to, I would just say in a nutshell, and again, we'll be bringing more of this to the board at a future presentation, but it's taking a look at our Tier 1 supports, which all of our students have access to on a daily basis, and how are we implementing those Tier 1 supports with fidelity.
So to that point, go to slide 15 that Mr. Cruz
Okay.
looked at. The reason I asked that question if we're doing training on MTSS. Because if we're doing training on MTSS right now, we should be stopping that. Because if DMG is going to come in and PRISM is going to come in and analyze what we're doing with MTSS, then why are we continuing to train if we need to look at our systems? And regarding this slide, what I heard you say at the beginning, it's looking at our instruction and how it applies to our interventions. However, it's not looking at core instruction. And core instruction is the most important thing when it comes to MTSS to academics. And if it's not looking at the core instruction, then how are we going to know what our practices are and what our parameters are? And if we're doing things with fidelity, to your point, of not moving students to tier 2 or tier 3, and it's not looking at core instruction, then I don't understand what this is doing. I truly don't, because it's going to come back with a report that is just going to identify some random data. I'm assuming maybe behavioral or SEL, but it's not core instruction, so we don't know where our bandwidth is pushed there for tier 2 and tier 3 for core instruction for tier 1, and where improvements can be made there if it's not looking at that. And if it's just coming back with a report for $175,000, and it's not even doing the work, it's just a report, I'm questioning the value of this, because to me it's just data, and it's not even looking at the most important thing, which is our tier 1 instruction.
Yeah. So let me unpack a little bit about what you said, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. I think first I don't want anyone in you or anyone that's hearing to really get hung up on that analysis of core instruction. There is a cost to everything that we do. And there are initiatives that are present in our core instruction daily that are happening right now. DMG is absolutely going to take a look at those. The comment about the core instruction is kind of that zero-based budgeting approach. And so we know that we are spending a finite amount of time and structure on a geometry class. We have to offer geometry. And so for DMG to audit that class is not a good sense if we're talking about zero-based budgeting. For DMG now to audit what are some of the interventions that we're providing that support that geometry class. So for example, at the high school, the opportunity, and I'm hesitant to bring up any initiative because I don't want people to think of anything, but there are, how are they supporting kids who, when they are not doing well in the theorems, where do they go? And there are places where they will go. So how is that programming supporting the overall piece of that core instruction? So we will absolutely be taking a look at that. The MTSS piece of it, it is a amazing direction for our district right now. That the last time we've updated the board was 2 years ago, was in 2024. And so, I know it's time for another update to our board. And really, it's that goal of sort of having, we don't want to bring in anyone or anything that's not going to impact what we're already doing. Because otherwise, as you talked about, it would be another initiative on top of initiative. And that's not what we want to do here with DMG. We don't want to create another initiative for our staff, for you all, for us. It's important to show how PRISM can align with some of the things that we're already doing. And so PRISM really is going to take a look at, to make sure that we can provide that ROI guarantee to all of our students that at the tier 1 level, all of the programming that supports all of that tier, all of those tiers are impactful, and they're getting a solid return on their on the investment. Because there are many things that I will not start to mention those initiatives that support a lot of our core programming. And those things we do want to take a look at.
So,
Because
I
I'll just
appreciate
add,
it.
yeah, and I'll just add, if we are not looking with fidelity at that tier 1 programming, then we are spending more money on tier 2 and tier 3, and PRISM wants to help us not do that.
well, so if it's looking at the effectiveness of tier 2 and tier 3, then I appreciate that, and I think that's beneficial. But what I heard you say is it's not looking at tier 1. So what I guess I would ask, as a non-educator talking to 3 people with their doctorates in the room, in education, is that, to me, it seems like if we are looking at maximizing our resources, it would be setting the parameters of what tier 1 looks like and not stretching our bandwidth by pushing kids to tier 2 or tier 3. What does district administration think that tier 1 looks at like, and have those principals lead that initiative of what tier 1 looks like before tier 2 or tier 3, and in that way, and I'm sure this is going to uncover some of that tier 2 and tier 3, so I appreciate that. By the way, I'd love to see a sample report. I would love to see that. But I mean, I trust, to Justin's point, I trust the work, I trust the process. I'm excited to get back the data to help guide administration on our work to align to the board's goals. So I'm not trying to get in the weeds, but you know, I hope it is beneficial information that we get back, because for $175,000 of just giving us a report, and we still need to go out and do all the work, it seems like a very expensive one initiative project, when it doesn't even go after the additional things that we're going to need to do to make that happen.
Yeah, and I'll just thank you for the comment. I believe, again, it's an investment in our $490 million budget, because that's where we're spending. Out of that $490 million, I believe 65% is spent on staffing, and so it's really important that we try to get as close to we can as to where every dollar is going. DMG will take their program and align it to whatever we are kind of looking at it. Because MTSS is such a strong part of where we're going, it was important for us just to
but anything
continue
contracted after the report, any professional development, any leadership or principal development, any redesigning of programs, that's all going to be extra money.
Not in terms of the cost that we're talking here. So, for example, you know, the ROI piece of that, that is something that is a very small investment, where they're going to take a look at our cabinet team, you know, for a minuscule amount compared to this 175, and make sure that everyone's trained in that academic ROI process. When we get to that point, that is something that, again, definitely share with the board, but it is something that is not of a dollar amount that we would even normally bring. That's how low the amount is.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. I think there was a lot of interest in your presentation. It was brought up at the last board meeting, and I think we were anxious to see what you would show us. I do like the timeline. I was surprised that it was as quick to execute. When I was paging through, I expected it to go up longer, so I hope we can keep to that kind of time frame, because I think that this is potentially beneficial for many reasons. One question, how much of a burden is this on the people who have to supply data?
Yeah, so one of the, it's very important that our data team is going to be part of this process, so I've been having some ongoing discussion already with our director for our assessment, and in talking with DMG, again, the idea is to take our existing paths of and how we're gathering information, and as much as they can utilize that, so they're not creating additional processes for us just to collect data. And so they've have already been very giving us feedback and been inquisitive about how often are you meeting, when you're doing those meetings, what's being discussed. For example, if this is approved, they've already talked about taking a look at and utilizing some of the initiatives we've already been gathering just through our MTSS work. That was very exciting for them.
Yeah, I think when you mention data-driven, it's very appealing to our board. It's been a constant theme for us that more data is always a good thing. And when you associate that with this initiative, I think it's appealing just on that level. I think the concept of academic return on investment also, I guess when I listened to the presentation, this wasn't just like a one and done report. It's kind of instilling a concept in decision makers in the district on how you can assess requests for different things. And when we had our budget discussion at the last meeting, I know one of the concern areas was supplies and constantly growing that, and mostly because of software licenses. So it's like, I think this will help us look at that in a better and more informed way. So when I looked at it, I think this has the potential for more informed decision making and improve student outcomes, and also helping us with manage our budget in a more robust way. So I'm interested and supportive to see what this would turn into. I do think it's a difficult task, and I agree that some of the data is going to be subjective, but I think it's taking us down a path that is necessary and will be helpful long-term for us to assess new things that we're looking at. So, and I agree, don't mention any programs right now because people will freak out.
Being very careful not to.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, legislative advocacy and Board of Education update. Do we have any items? Do you want to?
Just a quick update to share that we're moving forward with our plan presentation for ISB. That'll get submitted probably Wednesday or Thursday, and thank you for the feedback from a couple of you guys that are helping to finalize it, but that'll get submitted probably Wednesday. So we'll see what they say.
Yeah, any other legislative? Or, yeah, go ahead.
I spent my all-night Friday night and most of the day Saturday in an IASB division directors meeting for representing DuPage County. I got out in time to catch the last hour at the mental health fair, by the way. But I will give you all an update on that. What I did want to bring your attention is they had a speaker for the division directors from the Iowa Association of School Boards. And they went through this 10-year lighthouse study that Iowa did on school boards' role in creating school districts where all students succeed. And they gave us the book and everything, and it was incredibly interesting, and I will share the book with the board. But I wanted to say the 5 things that they outlined, we nail all 5 of them. So I'm just saying, as a board, is set high, clear expectations, create conditions for success, hold the system accountable to expectations, build public will, and learn together as a board. I thought, we did a great job at that. So, but I will get you a report of that meeting and then share this information out as well. But I just wanted to give you that quick update, and I think Natasha has something.
Yeah, so Mark and I went last Thursday to Brookdale. There's a Brookdale Neighborhood Association. They have a civic engagement series, and it's quite remarkable. They started with Nest, talking about the data center, and then the Park District, and this month's was on 204. So we presented on the referendum, the Safer Stronger, as well as the superintendent, and Mark talked about the finances. So we talked about what differentiates us from other school districts. It was very engaging. There were about 30 people there, and it was at Nature's Best, so, local right there. And then Mark and I are going to COSBA, which is a consortium of state school boards association, this Thursday, and looking forward to learning and networking and sharing ideas and coming back and reporting.
Yeah, I would encourage other organizations and neighborhoods that have group initiatives to hear about the school district to just contact us. We're always willing to send some speakers and provide information and answer questions. It's such a big part of their tax dollars and their community and their property values. So I would encourage anyone that has that kind of opportunity to contact us. And thank you very much for participating in that and representing the board there. So thank you. All right. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Any opposed?